The book is called Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. It's up on LarryElder.com. He is a former deputy assistant to President Trump, Fox News contributor, Fox News national security strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, as always, thank you very much for taking the time.
My pleasure, Larry.
Dr. Gorka, I don't know what you're doing on Monday, but I plan on being in New York, and I'd love for you to sit in for me if you have the time.
I'd be honored, Larry, anytime.
I'm going to say not too much pressure.
Yeah, nobody's listening, right?
So is that a yes?
That's a yes.
Okay, we'll set it up. I love the job that you did when you sat in for Dennis Prager, so I'd love for you to do that for me. So we'll set it up. Dr. Gorka, Dr. Shaquille Afridi, what is the status?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, look, what has Iran... We had a phrase when I was in the White House that we used with regards to Iran, that we used with regards to Qatar, problem nations in that part of the world. And the phrase that we used came straight from the president, and it was behavior modification. And what we're not seeing is behavior modification. We're not seeing, especially after the JCPOA Iran deal that unlocked billions of dollars for Iran, we're not seeing the requisite behavior coming out of regimes such as the theocracy in Iran. So behind the scenes, you know that people like DCI Pompeo is doing the heavy lifting. He went to North Korea on that secret mission. But at the end of the day, Iran is a violent theocracy and the largest state-sponsored terrorism around the world. So we just got to keep this man in our prayers and trust in people like Pompeo and the president.
Speaking of Mike Pompeo, Dr. Gorka, his confirmation is not a done deal. You've got Rand Paul, who's opposing him. John McCain is ill, and it's possible, I suspect, that he might not be confirmed.
Well, because of the individuals you mentioned, it's going to be very tight in committee. It probably will go to the Senate floor because we've got some intransigent Republicans who will not vote for this superb candidate, and then it may even end up, given the mathematics, it may even end up again with a tie-breaking vote having to be cast by the vice president. But look, Mitch McConnell can make things happen if he wanted to. If he kept the Democrats in Congress in session over the weekend, then things could happen and he could exert force. But unfortunately, the GOP leadership has not really supported this president and his candidate. We have 100 senior officials that are waiting for confirmation, including amazing candidates such as Rick Grinnell, John Bolton's former press spokesman, who should be going to Berlin to be our ambassador. So it's not just about DCI Pompeo. It's about another 100 people that the swamp creatures are blocking right now, Larry, as we're talking on this show.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka is my guest. Dr. Gorka, talk to me about the Syrian strike. President Trump, of course, touted its success. General Jack Keane, one of the Fox contributors, says that it wasn't particularly effective. What's your analysis?
Well, if you look at the targets that were chosen, it was 100% successful with regards to the chemical weapons capacity. So it was a research facility, a precursor chemical storage facility, a manufacturing facility. So it really hit a death blow to the manufacturing cycle for the regime. I myself, I too do not believe in regime change, just like the president, but I would have liked to have seen one more target added to the list, something of political significance, something that had symbolic weight to send an even clearer message to Assad that it's not just about chemical weapons. But right now, it's a bit early to say. General Keane has his right to have his opinion. He's a legendary general officer, retired. But now the measurement as to the success of the strike depends upon how Assad and his sponsoring regimes react to all of this. And it's early days to tell, but I think a clear message was sent not only to Damascus, but also to Moscow, also to Tehran, and even to Beijing and Pyongyang.
Dr. Gorka, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you, Are the North Koreans really sitting down with the South Koreans? Are they going to end their 68-year war? Are they going to denuclearize? And if all of that is true, is that because of President Trump? All that when we come back. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243.
We hope to see the day when the whole Korean Peninsula can live together in safety, prosperity, and peace. This is the destiny of the Korean people.
Where might this summit meeting take place? I've heard all kinds of suggestions.
They've had all kinds. I actually recommended for for an op-ed to do it in Paris. Why? Because Macron understands the Iranian threat, and they've been great enablers of this whole nuclear threat that we face today. Don't worry, it's going to be in Asia. But let me tell you, if this president pulls this off, if this summit is successful, and we really do go down the pathway to denuclearization, this president will deserve the Nobel Peace Prize.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. That was President Trump speaking first. Second speaker was the ex-deputy assistant U.S. Army. His name was Van Hipp. Expert on terrorism. Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War is Dr. Sebastian Gorka's book. He joins us. Dr. Gorka, did Mike Pompeo have secret meetings with Kim Jong-un, and what was the purpose?
I think the answer to the first question is obvious, given the press reports that have already been published. Yes, he did meet with the dictator. Why? Well, to make sure that the guy isn't just blowing smoke and that they're serious about this meeting, which as you mentioned in the last segment, this is a 65-year-old story. So we have the Korean War, which ended in 1953, it ended without a peace treaty. Right. It ended in an armistice, which means that conflict has technically been frozen in ice since 1953, and this is potentially the first time where some lasting resolution can be brought. It's a dictatorship. We've got to go in there with our eyes wide open, but I know Mike Pompeo. He's as much of a pragmatist as the president is, so he was going there to test the waters as to whether this is all smoke and mirrors or not. And right now, fingers crossed, things are progressing as we expected them to progress, Larry.
Dr. Gorka, I have a very good friend from South Korea, and she is extremely skeptical about this, very cynical about it. She says that the government from the North often makes feints like this. And I told her, you clearly know more about that area of the world and that culture than I do, but I will say this. I remember when I was in college studying the Soviet Union, Dr. Gorka, and I read this big fat book about the Soviet Union. I closed it and I turned to my roommate and I said, what in the world is holding this country together? All these different rivalries, all these different historical tensions, all these different ethnic groups. They're held together, I said, by the point of a sword. And once people are no longer afraid, this is going to collapse. He thought I was insane. Now, I was a little premature, but I also, Dr. Gorka, had a Nigerian teacher when I was in college, and we were talking about apartheid in South Africa and in then Rhodesia. And I asked him how long he thought it would last. He said it's going to last beyond your lifetime and very likely the lifetimes of your children should you have them. He was wrong. And the Soviet Union collapsed far faster than people predicted. And I think it is possible that this could happen. This could be pulled off. It's possible.
Well, skepticism is very healthy because, remember, dictatorships lie. That's what they do. They are built on a bedrock of lies, whether it's Hitler's Third Reich, whether it's the Soviet Union, or whether it's Kim in North Korea. So they lie. They break deals even before the ink is dry on the document. But your second reaction is absolutely correct. All of these regimes, it doesn't matter where they're located, dictatorships are inherently massively fragile and vulnerable because they all have one thing in common. They deny the inherent dignity of the human being based upon the fact that they are made in the image of God. And when you deny that fundamental truth of the dignity of the human being, sooner or later that wells up to a point of collapse. We saw it on November the 9th, 1989, when the Berlin Wall was breached, not by us, not by GIs. It was breached by the people living on the other side in the captive nations that took chisels and sledgehammers to that wall. We've seen it again and again and again. So, look, we have to be massively skeptical. Remember what the Gipper said, trust but verify.
Right.
But at the end of the day, these regimes, they're all a house of cards.
What do you make of this friction, it appears to be, between Lawrence Kudlow and Nikki Haley? She announced some new sanctions, and he said she got ahead of the curve, and there might have been some, quote, momentary confusion, close quote. She puts out a statement, with all due respect, I don't get confused. And the reaction on the part of people at CNN and elsewhere is, oh my goodness, she put this sexist person in his place. She needs to run for president herself. My goodness. What's your reaction to all of that?
Having been inside the building for months and months at a time, listening to all this garbage, it's another non-story. It's another product of the fake news industrial complex. Larry's just arrived. He's finding his way. Nikki Haley has been there in the Viper's Den in New York of the United Nations headquarters. There's nothing there, a load of nothing, and it's just a cheap shot, storm in a teacup, not news, Larry.
Dr. Gorka, the head of Japan, Abe, is in town. Yes. His numbers are abysmal. He's got apparently a personal scandal. Theresa May's numbers in UK are bad. Macron's numbers in France are bad. The head of Mexico, Nieto Pieta, his numbers are bad. Trudeau's numbers in Canada are bad. Merkel's numbers in Germany are bad. They all have lower ratings than Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is said to be this incompetent, confused leader. Yet everybody loves Merkel, and her numbers are worse than Trump's. I mean, what's going on?
You know what's going on. You've seen it for decades. We have the elite, including their cheerleaders in the media, that live in a cast-iron, Kevlar-coated bubble, and they're disconnected from reality. And this is why Donald Trump happened. This is why Brexit happened. This is why the recent elections in Italy happened, because the average citizen, through common sense, has seen that both sides of the aisle have failed them. And remember, I've said this publicly, and I'll say it again. Donald Trump doesn't owe his success to the GOP. In fact, he won despite the GOP. So here we have a reality where the average people are waking up and saying, so how has this quote-unquote elite served us in the last 30 years? And at the end of the day, whether you're living in the UK, whether you're living in Japan or Germany or even the US, you look at the elite and you say they are not only technically bankrupt, they're morally bankrupt, and they don't deserve the moniker elite anymore. And that's why the outsiders are winning.
Dr. Gorka, as always, thank you very much. Looking forward to you sitting in for me on Monday. By the way, you have massively big shoes to fill.
I know. And I can't talk as fast as Larry.